he said, you're looking over your shoulder at something you might have done that caused the cancer. What if the cancer isn't because of something you did, but is really about something you're meant to do? And that the why around it is in the future and not the past.
Welcome to the Matt Phillips Podcast. I am Matt Phillips, your sales leadership coach, mental toughness expert, and founder of Matt Phillips Coaching. Well, welcome everybody to another exciting episode of the Matt Phillips Podcast. I have a very special guest that I get to introduce you to today, a man named Mel Abraham. Mel and I, to give you a little background, I was fortunate to cross paths with him about 13 months ago because we're part of the same mastermind. And there's certain people that you meet that you just, hit it off with, resonate with. And even some of our discussions over the years about money, about leadership, about building businesses, about getting the most out of yourself, I've just absolutely loved, right? He's a man you're going to learn that is about serving, helping others. And he has spent time with me over this past year, pulling up a Zoom, whiteboarding stuff, talking about frameworks for business and leadership. And even though we have different businesses and different target markets that we go after, we're on this similar path to go impact people's lives. And that's what you get to dive in and learn about Mel today. Now, before I introduce him, I get to brag on him a little bit because I love doing this part of it to make people blush a little bit. But Mel is a CPA by education and an entrepreneur by exhilaration. And I love the way he describes that. I'm actually I always joke, a recovering CPA. So I got started in accounting and audit and all those sorts of things. So that number stuff, we just are able to spitball that back and forth. Mel is the author of the #1 bestseller, The Entrepreneur's Solution, The Modern Millionaire's Path to More Profit, Fans, and Freedom. And as the founder of the Affluent Blueprint, the Legacy Factor and Thoughtpreneur Academy, he has been obsessed with helping people and entrepreneurs bring their businesses to life and building the lifestyle they want. The power of his story, it's pretty incredible, right? But the principles and frameworks that he teaches, it became immensely clear after finding a cancerous tumor in his bladder larger than a baseball in June 2019. His cancer journey, followed by people's financial struggles through the pandemic, highlighted the immediate and urgent need for others to get access to these powerful principles. This is what we're here to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. But this personal journey, combined with the financial upheavals as part of that pandemic, became the seeds for his upcoming release book. And depending on when you listen to this, it might be already out. It's coming out in June 2024, called Build Your Money Machine: How to Get Your Money to Work Harder for You than you did for it. We dove deep, just him and I, talking about some of these things last time we got together in this mastermind. I could go on, but listen, Mel has built and bought and sold numerous multi-million-dollar businesses for himself as well as his clients. He is a global recognized thought leader, business advisor, CPA, and financial expert, sharing stages with a long list of Fortune 500 companies, as well as beacons in business and personal development industry, from names that you've heard like Arianna Huffington, Shailene Johnson, Brendan Burchard, Ed Mylett, Amy Porterfield, Ben Newman, and even Tony Robbins. Mel, my friend, welcome to the show.
Dude, Matt, it is so good to be here. My gosh, I'm really excited about this.
Well, it's a long time coming. I knew the first time I met you, I had to have you on the podcast, and things just lined up. I'm so excited about this book release, about, again, our conversations that are so important to all of our listeners right now, right? We're trying to build legacies.
Yeah.
That's what we're here to build. And we get to talk about that today. Now, I always open these with my big question. I'm curious to see what you have, but who is one leader who you've worked with, worked for, whatever, but leader that you've interacted with in your life? Who's the best one, and how has he or she impacted how you show up today?
I'm going to give you two. One is in business, one is not in business. Mm-hmm. And the first is my very first martial arts instructor. And part of it, really, the thing is, I met him in my teens, mm-hmm. and I've been in the martial arts for 40 plus years. I ended up living in Japan and training there and everything. But this very first teacher, I met him in a parking lot one day. But I didn't go and train. I didn't do any of that stuff. I went back to see him at his school probably 6 months later. Not only did he remember me, but he remembered my name.
Really?
Yeah. And the thing that I think he was instrumental in is to move me through and help us break the barriers of our own limitations. When it comes to the martial arts, we're pushing against, how many punches can we do? How many kicks we can do? But the nature of what he saw in us, in the potential and allowing us to develop was huge. He was one that was willing to take a back seat to allow his students to shine. And it was huge. The second one was a client of mine, a guy by the name of Gary Erickson. Maybe people will know the name, maybe they won't, but they will know the product. He was the founder of Cliff Bar.
Yes.
And Gary, here's this guy who is a avid climber, biker, and then decides that he hates all of the recipes of some of the bars, and he's going to create this his own bar. So he goes in his kitchen, uses his mother's recipe. He gives his company his dad's name, Cliff.
Yes.
And he starts to build this company. Now, what some people don't know is that early on in his career, and this is the way he actually demonstrates his leadership no matter what he did. Now, mind you, Cliff Bar was recently sold for over $2 billion.
Wow.
Okay. And his nature of leadership was the same. He was working in a bike shop early on in his career as a manager of a bike shop. He wasn't the owner. He was just the manager. And the owner comes in and sees Gary cleaning stuff in the bathroom and all that stuff, and looks at Gary and says, "Why are you doing this?" He says, "What do you mean?" He says, "This isn't for you to do. I don't pay you to do this. I pay them to do this." And he says, "Well, let me ask you something. Do you pay me to make sure that they feel good about their job, that they're led, and they have an example, and that there's a good culture here?" And he said, "Yes, I do." He says, "Then you pay me to do this." And this is how he kind of built this company, Cliff Bar, and how he treated his employees to have multiple bottom lines: community, people, the environment, all these things that actually created a mission, a movement within the organization beyond just profits. And so when there was challenges like the peanut scare, when there was challenges like hey, everyone steer clear of carbohydrates.
Yes.
They all rallied. For the company. He gave, as part of an ESOP, 25%, 30% of the ownership stake to the employees.
Oh.
And so now when there was a liquidation event of $2+ billion, they're all doing good. But he allowed them things like he gave them allowances for bikes, time off for community service. He lived a set of values through the company beyond just, hey, we got to drive the bottom line.
It's so interesting. Both the leaders that you talk about. I want to talk about your martial arts teacher for a moment, because to be able to see things in people that they can't see themselves, I think is a gift. And I think some people have it, but it can be developed, right? You have to look and you have to pay attention. You have to be quiet, things like that. When you interact with him, things like that, how did he get to that place? Was he very, I don't know, just he would introspective, like he was always kind of watching? You could tell he was trying to figure things out. Like, how did he come across? Was it an experience that he was able to have that impact with you?
He was a streetwise kid that grew up in Philly. And he trained under, so it was a Japanese style of karate called Shotokan. Master Nishiyama, when he was alive, came across from Japan and was the headmaster here. So all of us tested in front of him for our black belt, and he was a direct student of Master Nishiyama. So what happened is, I think that you got this brawler of a guy from Philly, a street. He calls him, it was a Philly punk, but he really quickly started to understand that there was something more to life than fighting. And he allowed himself to be immersed in this journey of living a higher calling and living more to it. And so through that, I think that he spent a lot of time trying to first understand himself. Why was he a fighter back then? What is he now? And how can he be better? How can he be more? Which allowed him to excel as an instructor for us, and to be an example. The amount of respect, and he was a tournament fighter. He was very, very, he won a lot.
Yes.
But he was someone that sat back and always was willing to look at it and say, let's challenge the limits. Let's challenge what we can do. Let's challenge all of it, because had he stayed in the kind of that pot of mess he was in Philly, he said, I'd have been a punk in jail.
Yes.
And so he says, I don't believe that our circumstances dictate our future. We get to dictate our future. And that's kind of the way he looked at things. I
love that. And I think it's important, right? The first step is like, look inside yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, something I strive to do. It's, part of this, even just the mastermind piece is a piece of it, right? Of that introspection to figure out, where do I need to improve, and what do I need to leverage, and what do I need to optimize, and what do I need to continue doing, right? It's not always fixing something, but it's that recognition of like, wow, I'm like really good at this or that, along with things to improve. And I think that's the first step in leadership, right? Is looking inside yourself a little bit. And it sounds like from the Cliff Bar perspective, that was also a thing of like understanding, looking inside, saying, what is really important? Yeah. And then how do I stay true to that with my employees as we grow to a, $2 billion transaction?
This is the kind of thing. So he had an offer on the table years and years ago. Gary did, for $120, $130 million to buy the company.
Yes.
And he had a partner back then. So they were literally walking in to this attorney's office in some high rise in San Francisco to sign the deal. And as the papers are sitting in front of him, he says, hang on a second. I need a moment. He walks out, goes downstairs, walks around the block, comes back upstairs, looks at everyone. He says, we're not selling.
Wow.
And they go, what? We went through the due diligence. The papers are, and his partner's freaking out because she's thinking she's got a big check coming. And he says, why? And he said, here's what I knew something was bugging me, but I wasn't sure what until today. He says, what I realized is that you don't understand my vision. You don't understand my mission.
Yes. And
that means that you won't understand my people. And under those circumstances, I can't sell.
Yes.
He walked away from, it was a $150 million deal.
Wow. That's guts.
It's guts. He literally, from that, he ended up having to, now he went from money in his pocket to money out of his pocket because he had to buy his partner out. She says, I want out anyways.
Yep.
And he had to go back to the employees and who knew that this was going to happen. So their certainty of their future was uncertain at best. They go, well, what's happening? Because it was a big company, that was buying him, and what happens. So he had to go back and say, look, here's what happened. We're not selling. Let's regroup. You and I, let's rebuild. Let's do this thing. And he had to re-engage and re-enroll them in a mission and a movement, and then rebuild the trust and the certainty with the team. Now, clearly it worked because sold for $2 billion.
Yes. Yeah, that he did something right. But I think that's that whole thing too of like when acquisitions happen, I think it's interesting because trust is broken to an extent, right? Because not that the owner's doing the wrong thing, but it's just that fear of the unknown of like what's next that just crops in, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, like it just starts can chip away at trust, right? Yeah. And then to have to rebuild it and get to a $2 billion, valuation is an incredible step.
Yeah.
But people focused, right? People focused, mission focused.
Yeah.
And let's take care, be the example. And I talk a lot, Mel, about this leadership philosophy, right? Of how do you establish your leadership philosophy and stay true to it throughout, even though it can be challenging, difficult, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it sounds like Gary is the perfect example of that.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, another question that I had for you, and before we get into your new book that's coming out, is about your journey with cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, how did that change you, if at all? How did that change you, like how you look at things?
God, it changed me. It changed me a ton. It really did. Someone had actually asked the question, hey, did have the cancer change you? The one big thing that stands out, there's a number of little things, but and we can talk about them. But the biggest thing that stands out for me is it allows me to say no to things easier. Because as much as when we're growing up, we hear, hey, your time here is limited. We don't take it seriously until mortality stares us in the face.
Correct.
And that's what happened. All of a sudden I go, oh, they were serious. Mm. And so what I realized is that we're all handed a certain number of slices of life. And, maybe many and many, but yes. We don't know how many slices.
Yes.
But yet, and my book is about money. It's about legacy. It's about a lot of things, not just money.
Yes.
But what we are so caught up with is not wasting money, saving money, and trying to build that. Yet we waste the most precious commodity we have, and that is time. Mm. And so what I know and what it allows me to do is to sit back and say, all right, when someone says, like you say, hey, I want to do the show, or I just got back from speaking in Utah yes. At an event. Every time I say yes to something now, I realize that I'm giving a slice of my life away.
Yes.
I'll never get back.
Yes.
I can't take it off a shelf. It's not inventoriable. Nothing. It's gone. So the only way that I can say yes to something is if I know that I can put 100% of my heart and soul into it and give it everything I have in that moment that I'm going to be in that I said yes. And in return, to expect nothing less in return.
Yes.
And so now all of a sudden I'm a little more critical and a little more discerning about where I'm saying yes, where I'm saying no, how I show up. Can I show up fully? Can I show up completely to make that happen? That's probably one of the biggest things. And I think the second thing was a realization because, look, 2019, they found what they thought was a 5-centimeter tumor in my bladder. It was a 7.5-centimeter tumor. It took 6.5 hours to get it out. They looked at me before I went in for surgery and said, hey, man, it's on top of the prostate. So we might have to remove the prostate. We can't see the ureter on the right side. We might have put a tube and a bag in for the kidney. And if it's really bad, you're going to lose bladder. So like my life was just complete. Now, I'm not a candidate, not that anyone should be, for cancer. I'm not a smoker, not a drinker. I lived a pretty healthy life. No one in my family's ever had cancer. I don't know how he did this. Yes. So I literally started to spiral in a resentful way of who did I wrong? What did I do in the past? So I was searching so much to find something or someone to blame so I could make sense of something that didn't make sense to me. And it was spiraling me into a dark, dark place because I couldn't figure it out.
Right.
And I think that sometimes we go through these kinds of things in our lives and we don't understand why, and we're trying to figure out something we did that makes it make sense. And sometimes it doesn't make sense, but someone said something to me. He said, you're looking over your shoulder at something you might have done that caused the cancer. What if the cancer isn't because of something you did, but is really about something you're meant to do? And that the why around it is in the future and not the past. I go, ugh. Because that was the genesis of the book.
Yes.
That was the rest of my journey as I came out of the cancer, as I started to work through, 3 surgeries, 4 tumors, 57 treatments, all of it.
Wow.
And saying, how do I make sense? How do I give it value? And it was that looking forward instead of backwards that allows me to do it. So whatever the circumstances people are dealing with, sometimes we look at it and say, how did we get here? And try to get a reason for it. Maybe we can't. Maybe the reason's in front of us. Maybe the question really is, what is this preparing me for to do in the future? No different than the resistance training in the gym develops muscles.
Yes.
And so it's what allows me, and whether it's right, wrong, truth, it's my truth. It's the thing that allows me to move through. It's the thing that allows me to move on. It's the thing that allows me to be productive, to be giving, and to be generous. And so I choose to live that way now.
That's so powerful, both of those points, right? Because I fall in that same bucket sometimes, like, life is short, and we hear these cliches, and when you're not faced with certain things, you're kind of like, it just kind of rolls off, right? It's, we have 3 kids, as you know, Mel, and one goes off to college next year, our first. And they say, like, the time is short with your kids. And when they're 3, 4, 5 years old, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is never going to end. And when's college coming? And then you're like, oh my gosh, like, college is here.
Coming, all of it.
And there's still days where we're like, oh, this will be great. And her freedom, we're so excited for her freedom and like to go explore and that adventure she's supposed to go on. But it's still that thing of like, oh no, like, oh my gosh, it's actually true, until you're staring it in the face. And it happens in so many different ways. And so I agree. It's like that, taking that time. And I love the point, though, that message that you received about, because I've done that in the past too, Mel, where I'm trying to put things together, right? Whether in business, I'm trying to say, why did this happen? That didn't get the result. It's usually, I didn't get the result I wanted.
Yeah.
Or something bad happened. And I'm like, okay, what did I do to make that happen? And I dwell in the past. And that's such a powerful statement to shift it of like, it's almost like, what do I need to learn from this to propel me forward, to help more people, to have a greater impact, to not repeat that, to excel forward. It's such a cool perspective to hear that.
Yeah. It's, I still get challenged with it because it's a high reoccurring cancer. We have to stay on top of it. We go in, regularly for scopes and scans. But it's something that I sit back and say, whatever my days are left, I want to make sure that they matter.
Yes. Yes.
It's that different perspective about, I have a very different perspective on legacy and what I talk about around that, because, so often when we have this conversation around legacy, it's about what we're leaving behind.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. I actually don't think that we want to leave a legacy. I think we want to live a legacy. And the way you live a legacy is to know that each moment matters and that you give each moment the reverence it deserves, to live fully in the present, to give it everything you have, and to sit back and say, how do I stack the moments of my life so as I get to those last days, they go, he or she lived well. He or she lived their legacy. And that legacy will continue on well beyond you, not because you left it behind for someone, but because you left it in someone.
Yes.
That's the difference.
Yes. I absolutely love that. Well, I think it's back to your comment about like time is short, and time is short, right? But it's giving away our most important commodity just by saying, in potential cases, yes to some things that maybe we shouldn't be saying yes to. And, maybe that's spending time with friends and family. Maybe that is going to that dinner where you should be at your kid's ball game or something like that, or the piano recital or something. Maybe it's just frankly at work where your priority list is 18,000 things long, and it's being brave to say no because it's the right thing to do for your people, for the business, for everything, to create the time, to create the legacy.
Yeah. So I met this guy at this event. He was another speaker. He's doing some phenomenal work with people that amputees for more veterans and all that stuff. Just some amazing work. And he's got kids too. And he heard me speak and he says, "Hey man," and we rode to the airport together and we had a good hour and a half in the airport also. And we were chatting and he wanted to ask about this, how I did it because I was a single full-time dad and everything. And I said, we kind of are, we make the mistake of thinking the quantity of the time that we do with our kids or with our people is the important thing. And it's not. It's the quality of it. And I said, what I did with Jeremy, now I started raising him as a single dad at 5.5 years old. Now I was building a business. I was traveling. I was speaking. And there was this time where he drew a picture of me. And here I was, in a stick figure with 2 computer screens and a phone in each ear. And I mean, it was this mirror of his image of his dad. That wasn't the image of what I had for me, but this was the truth in his world.
Yes.
And rather than sit back and go, I could have looked at the profits and all that and made the excuses. He didn't need the profits. He needed my presence. He needed that. And so one of the things that we did is I created a calendar. And it's what I told him to do. And I blocked out his time in advance. It was all marked in red. So he knew that was our time. Not movable, not changeable.
Yes.
Okay. And it wasn't our time with me on the phone. It wasn't it wasn't me passive. It was actively there. And the other thing that I did with him was I said, any other color on the calendar, you can turn it red at any time because you're a priority. And I think that when we ask ourselves, I've got all these things, how often do we find ourselves in a meeting thinking about the next meeting?
Yes.
So we're not fully immersed, we're not fully present, and we're not fully effective.
Yes.
How many times do we get home and we're with our spouse in the same thing? I'm thinking about something. And so the real question is, how can I make sure that whether it's 20 minutes or 2 hours, it is totally present, focused, and that they feel like it mattered?
Yes. So true. Well, and I've done that before. I probably do it too much still to this day.
I still struggle sometimes where I catch myself when my wife Stephanie comes in and I got the phone and I go, oh, hold on, and she wants that time, and so I need to give it to her. She's the most important relationship in my world right now.
Yeah.
I wanted to take a quick break from the podcast to invite you to something very special that we're up to at Matt Phillips Coaching. It's what we call the High Performance Leadership Program. Now, we know that leading people can be challenging. It also can be extremely rewarding. And one thing that I found as you progress in leadership and want to take that next level, get that promotion, continue to move up the ladder, is you have to continually invest in yourself. And you have to set yourselves apart from other people. And you have to continue to not only grow as a leader, but you have to grow your mental toughness, your mindset, because that is the one true differentiator. That's exactly why we built the High Performance Leadership Program, to come alongside you on a monthly basis, to give you the tools, training, and resources, and coaching with me to help you elevate your performance. So I invite you to head over to mattphillipscoaching.com/membership and join us today in the High Performance Leadership Program. Let's make your dreams and your career and your business a reality.
So it's like, how do we take it for granted? We take it for granted too often.
Yes. I remember you reminded me of my dad had this boss one time, because we I've got an older sister and we played lots of sports and did after school stuff like all the kids do today. And his boss told him one time, he said, if you ever miss one of your kids' sporting events or activities, I will fire you.
Wow.
And my dad's like, what? Hey, come on. He's like, I'm serious. Because this I don't even know this guy's name, but he understood this principle of take advantage of the time. Now you can sell later. Yeah. You can make up the time, do what you need to do, but don't miss those important things because they're critical. And I love how you said too, it's like starting with that first. Because oftentimes I think a lot of us start like business first. Like I got these meetings first for work and all these sorts of things. And then we'll fill in the personal stuff or family stuff later. And what you're saying is this almost like a little bit counterintuitive, but it's like, no, start with the personal first, then filter in everything else.
So when the whole thing happened with Jeremy and that drawing, a lot of people were telling me work-life balance, work-life balance. I heard it over and over. First off, work-life balance is a myth. Mm-hmm. Second, it's mediocre thinking. Mm-hmm. When you talk about balance, in my opinion, when you talk about balance, you're talking about a weight over here, a weight over here. They're playing tug of war. That's conflict. And on average, it's balanced. You're kind of looking at it and going, hey, I put my head in the freezer, my feet in the frying pan. On average, I'm warm. It's not the way it works. If you want to live to your greatness, there is no place for balance. You cannot have balance. You have to have harmony. Mm. And harmony is a result of intent and being intentional in the moments that you're going out there and saying, look, my harmony is because I'm actually consciously choosing to do this for this hour, for this half hour, for this month. And that everyone in my life understands the intent and the consciousness of that. Too often, we're not conscious and we're just going.
Yes.
And so that's the thing that drawing, that mirror that Jeremy did, that started to realize, okay, how do I be more intentional with and I still fell down, but I understood it better.
Correct. What a great exercise. We should have children spend some time with us and then draw a picture of your perception of me. And be careful what you ask for, right? Be careful what you ask for.
He did give me a lot more hair, so I'm good.
Wow. Does it really look that nice on top? That is fabulous. Well, then this stuff's so critical, right? And I want to shift a little bit to use this word intention.
Yeah.
Right. And I want to talk about your book because we had a really fun conversation last mastermind at one of the breaks, just talking about what I do with our financial advisor and how we interact and the generational type wealth and just generations, how to interact and how they see money and all these sorts of things. And I think it's such an important thing, right? When you look at this book that is either out, depending on when you're listening to this, or coming out very soon, Build Your Money Machine, how to get your money to work harder for you than you did for it. When I see that or read that title and see that title, to me, I don't know if I grew up with this belief or something, Mel, but it's like work. Then I can retire and hope to God the money holds out.
Yeah.
And that's not what this is.
No, that's our broken retirement system. That's industrial age thinking that we've had. It's the way we've been raised. The fact is that there is plenty of stuff out there about, hey, earn, go get a good job, go build a good business, earn. The mistake is that no one explains to us that, I call that the earnings machine.
Yes.
Okay. The mistake is that no one explains that the earnings machine isn't our wealth. They think that if I just earn enough, I'll finally have control. I'll finally have freedom. I'll finally have choice. I'll be able to do things based on what I choose to do. And it's not true, because the only thing that does is put you on the treadmill.
Yes.
And you're earning. I'm not saying you don't do it. You actually have to do it. It's what we need to do to build the business or build our life or build an earning stream. So we have to have the earnings machine. The thing that they don't tell us about is that in conjunction with the earnings machine, we need to create a money machine. The money machine is where your freedom is. The money machine is where your choice is. The money machine is where your control is. The money machine is where your legacy is. It is sitting back and saying, how do I do these parallel journeys? How do I build these two machines? How do I use the earnings machine to build a money machine? Watch what happens. And I just saw a recent statistic. People making between $50,000 and $100,000 a year right now, about, if I've got it right, 67% are still living check to check.
Wow.
Okay.
Yes.
People earning more than $100,000, 6 figures a year, 47.1% still living check to check. Why is that? because we're not having the conversation. We're not doing the right things with our money to really give us the option and the freedom. When you do it right. Now, this picture that Jeremy drew, what seemed like this inconsequential mirror into my soul as to what it was, is what got me to start looking at how do we start doing money different? How do we start doing business different? Because I was building my business. How do I do it differently? In a business, now I was a CPA at the time, in a business where I'm selling hours.
Yes.
It's time.
Yep. You're selling time. Yes.
So as soon as I step off the treadmill stops. Money stops. Yep. I needed something outside of that so I could give my time back. And I thought, okay, so that's how I started to do this. I just didn't understand the importance of it. I didn't understand the value of it until the cancer hit. Because when the cancer hit in 2019, I said, shut everything down. I got to focus. I'm on the fight of my life. I got to do this and nothing else. It doesn't matter. I mean, I was traveling, I was speaking, I was doing all kinds of stuff at the time. Shut it all down. But I had a machine.
Yes.
We flipped the switch and it started to produce cash. This isn't about an emergency fund. This isn't about draining savings. I didn't sell stuff. I didn't do any of that stuff. It was a money machine that was producing cash flow that allowed us to continue our lifestyle at the level that we had. And so I could focus. So basically work was optional.
Yes.
I could focus on what I needed to focus on. In other words, I had the ability to have harmony, intent in my life and say, what's important right now?
Yes.
And to be able to do that. And so what we really need to think about is, okay, whatever your earnings machine is, whether it's a job, whether it's a business, we need to find a way, and this book is the recipe to it, of how do you use that to build the money machine? Because in the money machine is where your freedom is, your choice, and your peace of mind. And that's how this thing all came about.
Yes. So I love this. And again, I think it's so important, right? The listeners, like, it doesn't matter if you have a full-time job, part-time job, if you run your own business, if you want to start a business, it doesn't matter. It's how do you merge both of these machines together and get them running, which the whole goal is to get it over to the money machine where it's growing to allow you to have a little more flex. And you and I were talking last time, Mel, about some things that we're doing, like I'm doing in my business, things like that. You're probably next level with some of the stuff. But for the listeners, what's an example of a money machine tool, tactic, whatever, that is a prime example of something that could be done or just to be aware of?
So I think the first thing that everyone needs to realize is whatever money you come into, for whatever the purpose is, to realize that these are your employees. Okay? They're employees for your life. Here's the challenge. You would never hire 24 employees and bring them into the boardroom and in the conference room and go, hey, welcome to your first day. I have no job description. I got no goals for you. I got no tasks. I don't even have a title for you, but I want to double my business in the next 2 years. Let's do it. I mean, but that's what we're doing with our money.
That's such a good description. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so we make money, money's coming in, but we haven't in advance given each dollar a job description. Now, some people will say, oh, you mean a budget? No, I mean permission. I mean permission to do the right things with the dollar. So if I know that my salary is 50,000, 100,000, 30,000, listen, wealth creation is more about behaviors than it is about money. I truly believe no one has money issues. Y'all, and I know that people go, you haven't seen my account, but
of course,
what you're feeling that you think are money issues, they're actually money symptoms. They're symptoms of choices, behaviors, and decisions you made in the past. Now, that might be confronting, but it should be empowering at the same time, because that means if we make different choices, different decisions, different behaviors, we get different results. So you're in full control.
Yes.
And so the first step for everyone is to sit down and say, I need to actually define what the job is for every dollar that comes in before the dollar comes in. So I'm not in the emotional slide of, I got money, it's Friday night, let's go out.
Yes.
But I know automatically what it's going to do, because when our emotions go up when it comes to financial decisions, our intellect goes way down. Like, this is how I got caught in the Ponzi scheme. We can deal with that another time. But I mean, literally, he jacked my emotions up with promise, and oh my God, I thought I was going to be richer than GDP. It was ridiculous. And so my emotions went up. I went straight to stupid.
Yes. I've been there, raising my hand right now. Yes.
Yeah. And so the first thing is to sit back and say, hey, I need to be intentional with every single dollar that comes in before it ever is received.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the first. That's probably the biggest thing someone can do.
I think that's such a cool perspective. I've never heard it described that way, Mel. You're not going to hire a bunch of people, have them sit around all day and expect something great to happen. It's that intentionality and how we're using our people, our time, our dollars, and how to get them to work for us. I think that's such a cool perspective. And now I'm lost in my world of like all the investments I've done and things like that, and where I need to put my employees to work, right? But I think that's such a cool perspective. And you could have a fun friend or a fun employee at the same time, or go out and have dinner and go to the party or buy the thing and do that with discipline, with intentionality.
You do it with discipline and you do it with permission. Think about it this way. You've already allocated the $200 to go out to dinner and everything, and it's guilt-free spending.
Yes.
You go, it's already there. I don't have to worry about it. I've already taken care of it. I can just go and do it. And you don't have to go, I wonder where this is coming from. It's already done.
Yes. That's one thing I've learned is that, I mean, speaking with you, and then, I've told you we have our financial advisor we've had for like 20, good Lord, probably over 20 years at this point. And, trust them. My sister-in-law works for them. It's just a great relationship, right? And he's challenged me to rethink the behaviors around money. And it was a really difficult thing. And especially owning your own business, right? The discipline, for example, to set aside tax money right away when you get the check from that company. Allocate 30% over. It's a discipline that can be put in place. One thing you and I talked about last time was we put together this at the prompting and worked together with our advisor and our trusted advisors is like a money market stack to look at like, how do we, in this interest rate environment, maximize the cash dollars that we have? And I was scared to death. As ridiculous as this may sound to you, Mel, to others listening, because all I was doing is basically moving a cash balance from one pocket of mine to another.
Yeah.
Out of my, bank account to this other institution, which is protected and is still the same, but it just earns a higher interest rate. And I was scared to death because what it was doing for me was shifting my behavior.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it at the start. I did not like it, Mel. I'm like, I'm going to lose it all, and that somebody's going to take it, and like, something's wrong. And it's right. I imagine you encounter when you go to this money machine mindset, those fears or limitations we put on ourselves. Like, talk to me a little about that too.
Yeah. So here's one of the challenges that we run into, and I made this mistake early on, is we've gotten to be such an instant gratification society that, I call it the beanstalk syndrome. We throw the beans out the door, and then, you wake up the next morning, this beanstalk's fully grown. Yes. It's not the way wealth works. There's this thing called the wealth flatline. And so what we're doing is we're developing the behaviors. We're putting money away. We're putting money away. We're putting money away. And you'll do it for 5, 6, 7 years. And you look back and you go, shoot, I made $67. This idiot Mel is just like, what is he talking about?
Right.
But it's because you're in the wealth flatline. And on the other side of the wealth flatline is the acceleration zone. That's the hockey stick part of it. That's where all of a sudden your money starts to grow. And all of a sudden it gets money momentum. And all of a sudden, like, the portfolio growth that you will have, the machine growth that you will have, will far surpass your ability to earn.
Yes.
But the only way we get there is consistently being in the game and time. And every time we stop or we decide to start over. So when I left my big consulting firm job in downtown Los Angeles, and I was young back then, it was 20 something years old, I cashed out my 401k and I went to Japan and I said, just spent it all. Now, mind you, I lost like 50 cents on the dollar because of taxes and penalties and all that stuff. But what I did is I was 5 years in, 6 years into my flat line. But I cashed it out. That meant I went back to zero and had to start again.
Yes.
And so the part of it is going to take some trust on people's part to follow something that historically and repetitively has worked for decades and decades and decades.
Yes.
When we look for the home run, when we're looking to hit it out of the park, that's our emotions getting involved. That's when we make bad decisions because we think it's actually going to jumpstart us all the way through. There's a place to take speculative risks. Yes. But it's when you have critical mass in your portfolio and you take it with a real narrow slice. I'm invested in startups. I have some angel investing. Look, if it went to zero, I would pout for a good week or so. But I'm not coming back to my wife and go, honey, we got to sell things and we can't live.
Correct.
So I'm being smart about that portfolio. But part of this is that, hey, we haven't run the journey. So we don't have this trust in the journey. We haven't been educated in the journey on what it looks like. The whole purpose of the book is to say, hey, look, I don't sell investments. I don't sell insurance. I come at it. My job is to sell you your dreams. My job is to give you the path to do it. My job is this unbiased criticism of some of the other things. Like I literally just yesterday saw someone say, you should not be spending $25,000 on a Camry or a Hyundai or whatever. You should be spending $190,000 on a R8 because that is wealth transfer. No, it's pissing your wealth away. It's bad advice, and on a depreciating asset, unless it's a classic car or you're not driving it, you don't lose money on it.
Yes.
And so, and there's all that kind of stuff out there versus sitting back saying, look, if your wealth creation journey is an adrenaline rush, there's a problem. It is this systematic, persistent, step-by-step following a recipe that you sit back and say, all right, and over time, there was a study of 10,000 millionaires. The majority of 70% of these millionaires never made more than $150,000 in their career.
Wow.
So it isn't about all the money you make. It's the intentional design of what you do with the money, and we have to trust in it, and we have to understand it. And so part of this is that we're not educated in it. They don't talk about it. We're not supposed to talk about it because it's impolite and it's this taboo topic. I think you open up this conversation. I think we start to have the conversations. There's no stupid questions. There's no dumb questions. No one has talked about it. And so what's happening is that we're gaining our financial knowledge through observation. But who are we observing? Some TikTok idiot that's saying to go buy an R8?
Yes.
Or we're interpreting stories of what we saw. Like the very first time I saw my father cry was in an argument with my mother around money. So all of a sudden I'm interpreting what that meant. Yes. And that's changing but I don't have enough of a foundation to interpret. So I think part of this is really us exploring and being curious enough to say, hey, let's understand it a little bit.
Yes.
Let me give you some frameworks, give you a process, give you some systems, and know that here's the reality. Over time, you'll find that momentum. We just got to stay in the game. We got to do it right, be safe, and do it that way.
Yeah, this is so critical, right? Last time you and I talked, and one comment I made, and my wife and I talk about all the time, right? We all have our baggage around money and all these sorts of things, right? Of what we observed. And one thing my wife and I've talked about I will share with my kids when I sign agreements with companies, and I'll share the number. And at first my wife and I are both like, should we be doing this? Should I tell them? And I don't give them the ins and outs of like how much money I make or things like that. But I tell them when I sign big contracts, and I tell them the amount. And because I want them to know, A, it's possible. B, then there's a follow-up conversation that has to happen of, you know, you hear people like, oh, I made $1 million in revenue this year. And I'm like, they're like, wow, they must have everything they want. I'm like, whoa. Understand the way business works and overhead expenses, like margin, like how did they generate that revenue? There's all sorts of things that happen to get to, you know, net income ultimately and the tax you have to pay. But I agree 100%. It's like having that conversation, and then how kids are we disciplined? And we don't do this enough, right? With our kid first going off to college, it's something that we're starting to do more of and need to do more of, like take it to the next level, Mel, is talk about some of the disciplines that we've put in place, fighting and screaming. And it wasn't, like I said before, it wasn't the most fun thing in the world because I had to get over myself and change my behaviors. But just that discipline of doing that. We're going on a vacation to Florida in over Thanksgiving. And I had this thought, Mel, about, I'm like, oh my God, like that's going to be an expensive one. And then I look, and because of this simple shift that I made and we made as a couple, that money and then some is sitting in that account already because we allocated it there for our little fun thing. And it's that disciplines. And that's where I think I agree 100%. The conversation has to be started. And that's why I wanted so adamantly to get you on the podcast today, because I want everyone to hear that, again, job, if you work for a big company, small company, if you own your own business, if you want to start your business, like wherever you're at, this I've learned over time, and I've gotten to learn from people like you, Mel, about this sort of stuff. All the other people I've come in contact with, of the shift in behavior and the intention of where you're putting our money. And I still got work to do. I got lots of work to do.
I'm constantly working.
Right. But this book, that's what I love. I Build Your Money Machine, how to get your money to work harder for you than you did for it, is such a critical piece, this recipe that we can utilize to put to work right now.
We spend a lot of time on trying to figure out our physical wellness. We spend a lot of time talking and trying to figure out our mental wellness. Yet one of the greatest stressors in relationships, in life, and for those that have employees, for your employees, is financial. So if they have financial stress, it's stressing their relationships, it's stressing them at work. Their PTO goes up, profitability goes down because the productivity is down. So the missing link between physical wellness and mental wellness is financial wellness. It's not about giving your employees or people more money. It's about giving them tools to do the right things with it so they have security and peace of mind to sit back and go, oh, I am going to be okay. Yes. Now, all of a sudden, that strips away, you know, that stress in the relationship, in the work environment, and all of that to make that, and to give them a framework to have conversations with their spouse, to create a relationship where it brings you together versus separating you.
Yes. And for you leaders of teams out there, can you imagine if you bought this book for your team and had discussions around this book to give your employees that peace of mind? Because peace of mind increases creativity, it increases productivity. It's proven. Studies prove this stuff of when you take these stressors away. And I just want to urge you, highly encourage you, whatever words I have to use, what a great gift this could be for your employees, for not just to make them more productive at work, but to set them up for a successful life. It's such a critical time for this, Mel. I'm going to add pre-order links. I'm going to add order links when it's ready. We'll update but one last question, and I'm just so thankful for your time, Mel, but where can people best connect with you, find you, and just make sure they're looking out for this or purchasing this? So
me personally, Instagram and YouTube, Mel Abraham 9 on Instagram, my website, melabraham.com. The book is going to be Building Your Money Machine, book.com and everything. I want to have these conversations. So I do regular shows, regular Q&As, because I don't want people to listen to TikTok financial advice of buying high expensive cars and things like that. I want to be able to sit back and look, I got nothing to sell you. Let's just get you steered straight, because you can literally see the stress just wash away when you go, you're okay.
Yes. So huge. And we're going to put all the links in the show notes. So please connect with Mel. go over to his website, YouTube channel, great YouTube channel. You can write into him, ask questions, all these really, really cool things that he's got going on. And if you can't get Mel for some reason, just email me because I'll see Mel a couple times this year. I'll call him for you. But Mel, thank you so much for your time today, for just being you and sharing just this wisdom with us today. Thank you so much.
Oh, my friend, it has been an honor and a blessing to me. It's a gift to me because it gives the value to the cancer that I had. So I appreciate you, my friend.
Absolutely. All right. So for those of you, to close us out today, please go check the show notes. Pass this on to your family and friends. Tell them about this. This topic is critically important to their overall success of their families, the legacy that we want to leave, not only the time we spend with people, but potentially this money machine that we create. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Matt Phillips Podcast.
Thank you for joining us today on the Matt Phillips Podcast. If you are like us, we know that you are here to do great things, to become the sales leader that makes things happen and drives big time sales results. We know you have that big vision, and we are here to help get you where you want to go. We're here to help you develop that unstoppable, rock solid leadership skill set and help you train to master the one true differentiator: mental toughness. We would love to be part of your journey. So if you are ready, head over to mattphillipscoaching.com and check out the ways that we can help. As always, please share this episode and make sure you subscribe by clicking the button below. Thank you again. And now, go crush the day.